The setting of innocence. The story begins in an ordinary home, where life looked stable from the outside but felt increasingly empty from within. She was married to a man who was kind in many ways, yet distant. Their conversations had grown shorter, their evenings quieter, and the passion that once filled the days now felt like a faint echo. She often found herself longing for attention, for someone who would notice the little things, her smile, her mood, her silence. It was during this time that her stepbrother, Daniel, came to stay with them. It was supposed to be temporary. He was between jobs and homes, and her husband, always practical, offered him a place to stay. At first, she felt nothing unusual about it. He was family, after all, even if only by marriage. He was polite, respectful, and eager to help around the house. In the beginning, his presence was simply a convenience, an extra set of hands, an extra voice in the otherwise quiet home. Then came the day of the forgotten towel. It was small, ordinary, almost laughable, yet it planted the seed for everything that followed. She had just finished her shower when she realized she had left her towel in the bedroom. She called out for her husband, but he didn't respond. She tried again, only to hear the faint sound of his laughter from the living room as he talked on the phone. He hadn't even noticed her voice. Feeling embarrassed, she hesitated, but then Daniel's voice came from outside the bathroom door. "Do you need something?" he asked, calm and casual. Her cheeks flushed as she admitted she had forgotten her towel. Moments later, he returned, slipping it through the slightly opened door. It was such a simple act, so ordinary, yet something about it unsettled her. He had noticed when her husband hadn't. He had responded when her partner ignored her. When she wrapped the towel around herself, she couldn't shake the strange flutter in her chest. That evening, she tried to forget about it, convincing herself it was nothing. But as the days passed, the image of Daniel standing outside the door lingered. It wasn't what he did, it was how it made her feel, seen, acknowledged, cared for. Something her marriage hadn't given her in a long while. She brushed off the thought, but deep inside, a subtle shift had already begun. The slow drift towards temptation. In the weeks that followed, life inside the house began to change in quiet, almost invisible ways. Daniel, with his easy manner, slipped into the daily rhythm as though he had always belonged there. He helped with groceries, cooked meals occasionally, and asked her questions no one else seemed to ask anymore. "How was your day? Are you tired? Do you want me to take care of this?" Simple things, but powerful to someone who had grown used to silence. Her husband, meanwhile, grew more distant. His work consumed his time, and when he was home, his attention was locked on his phone or television. She tried to talk to him, but he brushed her off with half-hearted replies. "I'm tired. We'll talk later." Later never came. The loneliness that had once been tolerable now felt sharper because she had something to compare it to, Daniel's presence. One night, after her husband had gone to bed early, she and Daniel remained in the kitchen, lingering over cups of tea. The conversation flowed easily. They laughed about old childhood stories, shared frustrations, and spoke about dreams. It was the kind of conversation she hadn't had in years, intimate without being physical, comforting yet dangerous. She caught herself staring too long into his eyes, noticing the warmth there. The towel incident returned to her mind often, now symbolic of something greater. A moment when she had felt vulnerable, and he had been the one to answer. That memory fused with the growing comfort between them, forming something she didn't want to name. There were subtle touches, at first accidental. His hand brushing hers when he passed her a cup. Their shoulders touching when they sat on the couch. Each time, her heart skipped a beat. Each time, she told herself it meant nothing. But deep inside, the line between right and wrong was blurring. She began to look forward to moments when her husband was away, not for the solitude, but for Daniel's company. The guilt gnawed at her, but so did the craving. She knew she was treading dangerous ground, yet she couldn't bring herself to step back. Temptation doesn't always arrive as a storm. Sometimes it's a slow drift, so subtle you don't notice until the shore you once stood on has vanished behind you. The betrayal unfolds. It happened on a quiet evening, one that began like any other. Her husband had gone out late for work, promising he would return after midnight. She and Daniel decided to watch a movie together. They sat side by side on the couch, the glow of the television casting shadows across the room. As the movie played, she felt his arm brush against hers. Neither of them moved away. Instead, the space between them seemed to shrink with each passing moment. She tried to focus on the screen, but her mind was racing. She could feel the tension, thick and undeniable. Then, almost without thinking, she excused herself to take a shower. As she stepped out, she realized, again, she had forgotten her towel. This time, her heart pounded as she called out softly. Once again, it was Daniel who answered. He brought the towel to her door, and in that charged silence, something broke inside her. When she stepped out, wrapped in the towel, their eyes met. She saw desire in his gaze, mirroring the longing she had tried so hard to suppress. Neither spoke. Instead, he stepped closer, and before she could stop herself, their lips met. The kiss was soft at first, hesitant, then urgent, filled with the weight of unspoken feelings and forbidden hunger. It was wrong, every fiber of her being knew it, but it felt alive, intoxicating, irresistible. When they finally pulled away, breathless, reality came crashing back. She whispered, "This can't happen." But the moment had already changed everything. The line had been crossed. That night marked the beginning of a secret that would consume them both. The consequences of betrayal. At first, they promised it was a mistake, something that wouldn't be repeated. But the temptation was too strong. One kiss led to another, one stolen moment to many. Soon, they found themselves entangled in a secret affair, hidden in plain sight under the same roof. Her marriage began to crumble quietly. She grew distant from her husband, avoiding his touch, lying about where she had been. He noticed, of course. He asked if something was wrong, but she dismissed his questions. Guilt pressed heavily on her heart, yet it didn't stop her. The towel became a haunting reminder. What had begun as a harmless mistake had turned into the symbol of betrayal. Each time she picked one up, she remembered the night it all began. Eventually, the truth could no longer remain hidden. Her husband found subtle signs, lingering glances, unexplained absences, whispers of conversations that didn't belong. One evening, his suspicions spilled over. He confronted her, and in that moment, the fragile world she had built collapsed. Tears flowed, explanations stumbled out, but there was no undoing what had been done. Trust, once broken, cannot be easily rebuilt. The house that once felt alive with 3 people now echoed with silence and bitterness. Daniel left shortly after, unable to face the damage. She remained, caught in the ruins of her choices, haunted by the towel that started it all. Infidelity doesn't always begin with passion or malice. Sometimes, it begins with something as small as a forgotten towel. A moment of vulnerability, a need for attention, a spark that should have been extinguished but instead was fanned into flames. And in the end, that small moment became the crack that shattered everything.